Hello there, welcome back to the channel. Nerd.World Films and a continuation of the Friday the 13th horror movie series, this time with the imaginatively titled Friday the 13th Part 3, or Part 3D, depending where you find your particular release. This film was released again just 1 year after the release of the second movie, feeling once again a little bit rushed. This film was made to capitalize on the 80s revival, and it was a revival, not a beginning of, 3D movies, which had been kind of popular back in the 50s and was seen as something of a revival in the 80s. Made to quickly capitalize on this growing fad and to put a horror movie into this genre, we get Friday the 13th Part 3, and it leads to some interesting acting and some interesting special effects that were clearly geared towards a 3D release of this movie. And when you're watching it in 2D, they do feel a little strange and out of place. But getting into it, this is Friday the 13th Part 3. And this film is also the beginning of the Jason Voorhees we all know and love, the great hulking version, or at least bigger anyway, and he finally gets his hockey mask and we lose the burlap sack.
Also, quick post-filming insert, this is also the movie that introduced a little piece of canon that I quite like. Jason got an axe to the head in this film, basically goes through his hockey mask and leaves a crack up in the top left corner. That is something that they keep in all the movies subsequently going forwards, remembering that his mask was actually damaged here when he first got it. Keeping a distinctive little crack up in the corner is just something I like.
And by this movie, he's got it down. He likes his machete, he doesn't like his teenagers, he doesn't like people. He does, however, like hacking them to pieces with his machete while wearing his hockey mask to, protect his delicate face and feelings, because he's a very self-conscious little baby boy, this Jason. He doesn't like the way he looks. He's got some serious body dysmorphia issues. I'd say he should see a therapist about it, but he'd probably eat them. Following much of the same formula as the previous movies, this film takes place at Camp Crystal Lake, or rather near it, at a purpose-built set, which was basically a barn where they would all do a lot of the filming for this movie, and despite appearances was actually filmed in January, February, where it was particularly cold at that time of year, making it a particularly unpleasant shoot. The original plan was for Amy Steele to return to the movie, and it would have had quite a different storyline, being set in a psychiatric hospital with Jason tracking her down to seek revenge for the injuries that he had sustained, and probably to avenge his mother, even though she had nothing to do with that. But that was the basic plot of the original film. But Amy Steele, who was by this point involved in other projects, declined the offer to return to the series, a decision that she has gone on record in interviews subsequently as stating that she kind of regrets and wishes she'd said yes to. This is also another running theme in the Jason movies, with very few characters, with the exception obviously of Jason, returning movie to movie, often leaving it at just sort of a one-hit wonder of a character, even if they survive to the end. The character of Ginny survived, but she doesn't return for this one. Instead, we're met with a new protagonist, Chris. We also get, as I said, the first time we see Jason as a bigger, more hulking character, and he's larger and more powerfully built, although the actor, who was a bodybuilder, wasn't as gigantic, sort of Arnold Schwarzenegger sort of huge that they really wanted him to, so he actually wore a padded suit under him, even though he was 6'3" and actually pretty well built. Of course, there have been many actors who have portrayed the character of Jason being in a hockey mask and basically a figure in the shadows. Quite often it doesn't really matter under all the prosthetics if you use the same actor to play him. Most famously, Kane Hodder has donned the infamous hockey mask and machete multiple times, but in this film it was Richard Brooker, who I only learnt during the researching for this video died back in 2013 at the far too young age of 58, which is very sad. May he rest in peace. Although he only portrayed the character once and has only a few acting credits to his name, this film is memorable partly because, again, the hockey mask makes its first appearance. We also get the first appearance of Jason as a larger-than-life, more devilish, demonic killer, because he's clearly now come back from the dead twice. So there's something not quite right about this guy, and which is pretty obvious by the time you're watching the movie. Also, this film was intended to be darker. They were taking it in a darker direction and trying to decide whether or not they really wanted any more sequels to this film. And one of the directions they originally intended on taking it was, although I don't know if any of these were filmed, and I don't know how far into the storyboarding or decisions into making the movie these plans got, but Jason was going to have also been a perpetrator of assault, without using the buzzwords that'll set off the YouTube algorithm too much, of the character of Chris. This was felt that this would demonize him so much to the audience that people wouldn't want a return of this killer again, but obviously money, and people decided, no, we're not going to do that. That'll make any potential sequels meh. It also may diminish future VHS sales, as they were probably anticipating by that point of this, as home media was becoming more of a thing in the 80s. And also, you know, merchandising and other such things. Who wants to wear this of someone who's, you know, committed SA? Getting into the movie, again we follow our main protagonist, our final girl, Chris, played by Dinah Kimmel. Now, as well as a whole host of, once again, horny, dumb teenagers out to have some partying good fun in the woods, who are all just disposable cannon fodder for Jason to meat bag up until he gets to the final girl once again. Basically a common trope of these films. There isn't much to say, once again, about the storyline. He's gonna hack his way through all the people here, one by one, killing them all. It has some pretty creative deaths, but as I said, those are mostly lending to the fact that this film was intended from the beginning to be in 3D. As a result, the posters show it in 3D with the machete sticking out. You've got characters, you know, googling out to the camera with their eyeballs and things of this nature. All with the intention of making it 3D, make it easier on the advertising, so it could pop out of the screen, so make the people pop out of their seats and pop their popcorn in the popping cinema. I'm so sorry, I can't stop myself with those jokes. They're not funny, I don't even care. Obviously, the movie takes us through step by step as he kills off the victims. Eventually everyone figures out they've got a murderer on site. They're all discussing, they know about the legend of the Camp Crystal Lake Killer, and lo and behold, that's who we have. Camp Crystal Lake Killer. Although many of these background characters are pretty disposable, and let's face it, you've got your run-of-the-mill cliches. You got your kind of tubby funny guy, you got your token black guy, I'm sorry, it's the 80s, it is, and then you've got your token bad boy, your token innocent girl, your token party girl. They're all here, and they all get their own 3D death for the most part, and these vary. You've got Jason stabbing someone with a pitchfork as it goes into the camera. You've got someone's eye popping into the camera. You have got Jason firing a harpoon gun at someone as the harpoon flies out of the screen and comes straight at you. You've got the variety of these ridiculous deaths, and they're imaginative and they're creative and they're kind of fun, but because of the unusual angles and how the 3D technology that worked back, the way it worked back then, you had to be hyper precise. I mean, nowadays you can use editing software to make something 3D. You can convert it. I mean, it's not perfect, but you can do it. You can use 3D cameras that are much better, more advanced. These ones were much more temperamental. You had to hit your mark perfectly, and that's, as a result, you get actors who are often, they're looking at their mark. You can almost see them looking into the camera. I think a couple of occasions you can actually see them looking into the camera as they try to work out where exactly they need to hit their mark. Again, this is portrayed from both sides, of both the victim POV and of the killer POV, all to get that fun 3D effect for the audience. I'm not saying it's not worth it. That's the movie industry for you. It is worth it, but watching it again in 2D, it ain't great. It's alright, but it ain't great. But it's mostly the sort of ridiculous acting you can see that goes along with it. That's not to say that they're doing a bad job. They're not. It just kind of looks a little silly, but in a good way. The film is entertainment. I try to avoid spoilers in these, so aside from, obviously, we know who the final girl is, which is another 80s movie trope. These are all things that the later Scream movies in particular would sort of riff on, which were these sort of basic plot beats, sort of bullet points of what your film has to have in it. And the Jason movies hit those bullet points really, really well whenever they want to, and they generally want to in every movie. This one stands out for being 3D. There was no film before it or after so far in the Jason movies that have tried to go down the route of being 3D again. It was a very short-lived fad in the 80s, and it fizzled out as quick as it started, with everyone kind of losing interest. I don't know if you've ever tried to watch a film with 3D glasses on. Kind of no. Just no. But, so, taking it, considering its imaginative deaths, it's mostly kind of annoying characters, to be honest. This film does have that against it. The main hero character, she's fine, but you have a lot of peripheral characters who, because they're such cliches and they are such stereotypes, even for the 80s, I don't know whether it's me looking back on it in hindsight. It's easy to look back with 20/20 hindsight and just go, yeah, that maybe wasn't so great. I don't know if it's just me, but they are cliches, and they're just dumb, and there's no getting around it. The actors did a fine job despite the freezing conditions and difficult shooting, not to mention, again, very cold, and a lot of people end up in a lake. Obviously, it's not going to be the best conditions. It's not conducive to a happy environment, although by all accounts, aside from the very likely copious amount of drugs that were going around behind the set, everyone was pretty happy and having a chill time. And I'm going to take this up to my scores. I'm going to give this film a healthy 5 out of 6, whatever my nerd slices of the pie actually represent. Reason being, I enjoy this film. I enjoy in fact, I enjoy all the Friday the 13th movies. They're all very fun. And this one stands out for being an attempt at 3D, but that very attempt being a little on the nose and trying to capitalize on a fad does pull the film out of its normal, healthy sort of story plot beat just slightly, hence me bringing its points down. Because of the decision to make the film 3D, they made story decisions and death decisions that had more to do with looking cinematic and looking 3D than they did about necessarily being good and realistic and convincing. And as a result, it can take you out of the film, but bearing in mind it was made in the early 80s, it ain't too bad. It's a pretty decent film. I do recommend all of these films, by the way, the entire franchise. As a completionist, again, you gotta start with part 1 and move your way all the way down the list. And with that, we're at the end of this video.
I just want to take this moment to thank you for watching that video. If you liked what you saw, please check out my social links in the description box below to Instagram and Twitter and others, and also is down there a link to my Patreon page where you can support this channel and the others as I try to grow this franchise and do this more regularly. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you for watching, and bye bye.
Ooh, 3D.